Yo, well, how's it going, Indy wrestling fans? Welcome to Indy Handshake podcast. I am Jesus Cruz, and today I'm joined by wrestler, trainer, and promoter Billy Blade. Billy Blade, how you doing, brother?
What up, Jesus, man? It's been many, many, many years, man. It's crazy how we're still doing this, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I met Billy Blade around 2003, 2002, 2003. I used to go down to CWA. We'll talk about CWA in a second. I used to go down there with Ron Head, Vic Grimes, Vinny Massaro, and just road trip down. And CWA was a very well put together promotion, and it gave a lot of people a lot of opportunities, and we'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, Billy was cool enough to let me go and do my thing and film for our local TV show that we had up here in the Bay Area. So yeah, thank you for that, man. You know, I always remember that you were one of the cool ones.
Yeah, man. I just appreciate, like, when I first started, and we'll talk about all that, I'm sure, but like, it's just one of those things with CWA in my area. There was no professional wrestling, California Wrestling Alliance. And the guy that made the logo, it made it kind of look like a bat. I remember that. And a friend of mine, his name is Jesse Justice. And actually he makes a bunch of belts now for Milliken belts, I believe. Now he's out in North Carolina, but he was real cool. I had a really cool setup, and everybody. And I don't know. I know we'll talk about the CWA thing and all that, but yeah, I appreciate like you coming down. And I just felt we were kind of the center of California, so we can use center NorCal guys and SoCal guys and not get heat, because that's what a lot of people got back then.
Oh yeah. No,
I remember that kind of stuff.
That. Yeah, so
sure,
tell us, standard question: how did you get interested in pro wrestling, and more importantly, how did you find indie pro wrestling in your area?
Oh man, so you get some youngsters that we call them youngsters. Nowadays, they'll be 10 years in the business. I went on the internet and I did this and did that. Well, shoot, I didn't really know too much about internet and whatnot. I mean, I know it was there, but I didn't use it for wrestling for the most part. So what I end up doing is, when I was a kid, man, just like anybody else, I loved wrestling. My dad, my mom, my aunt got, believe it or not, my aunt won $1 million on the big spin back in the day. So she was the aunt that, had the big satellite that sat in your yard. If you remember those, a real big satellite, and they ran 4 pay-per-views a year back in the day. And so what I would do as a kid is my mom would take me every 3 months to the pay-per-views, and I'd go and watch pay-per-view because I just was a huge fan. Ultimate Warrior was my favorite as I was younger. So I used to do the tassels, and I'd make belts, and me and my brother wrestle. I mean, that's typical everybody's wrestling. But when I got older, of course, I started liking different styles, like Rob Van Dam. I started noticing our ECW on it wasn't regular cable, it was like Access or something like that at like 3 a.m. I'm like, man, this Rob Van Dam guy's bad. This guy's badass. Anyway, bottom line is I started doing all the researching or whatever, and Ultimate Warrior actually had a wrestling school when I started thinking about it. And so I got to talk to Ultimate Warrior, which is kind of crazy considering that was like my favorite wrestler of all time. And all of a sudden he answers, the phone, and it's him in character and everything, I'm like, holy crap, it's Ultimate Warrior.
Where was this at?
His school was in Arizona.
Where was this at? Arizona, okay.
It was in Arizona, yeah. So what ended up happening is I called him, and he was expensive. I can't remember pricing or whatever, but it was pretty out there in Arizona. And, it just, to me, I didn't know how to go about it, whatnot, you know what I mean? So eventually research and Ultimate Warrior came from School of Hard Knocks and Rick Bassman and it was a combination of the Sting and Ultimate Warrior, I'm like, oh, so then it's in San Bernardino. That's where my aunt lives. So what I started doing is I started going that route, and I started training down with Jesse Hernandez, and I got really lucky because the classes I was in, I mean, Frankie Kazarian was really the kind of head trainer. And then we had guys like KG Sakota, and I mean, even like Brawlin' Bo Cooper, and I mean, the class, Bobby Bradley. I mean, the class goes on and on and on. I mean, there's so many people that came out of that school, even if they don't admit it. That's what's funny about it. You know what I mean? And then, so it went down to School of Hard Knocks, but then they had a big split, him and Bill Anderson, because it was a big controversy, So Bill Anderson and Jesse Hernandez split. So I'd go to Jesse's and Bill's and train. So Bill would train with like TJ Perkins and the Cubanitos and whatnot, and they would train, and it was fun, man. I mean, I did train for a long time, probably a year or so. I don't remember how long, 1.5 years, which is a long time for independent wrestling, And then I went on. Then I had a baby that was due, so that kind of halted me going as regularly down south. So I ended up going to Ultimate Pro Wrestling on Sundays, where they had an amateur class. I mean, like a semi-pro class. Had Joey Ryan and Scott Lost and Matrix, if you remember Matrix and guys like that. I think he was the head trainer for Matrix. And then Tom Howard had a WWE developmental class on that night. So I would end up hanging out and staying as long as I can. And kind of like, I basically was the throwing guy, like, do whatever you want with me. I want to learn, Heiderreich, Nathan Jones. I mean, all these guys are getting, and Chris Daniels was like training there. All these guys are actually there to train for developmental because they're under contract. But then of course, and you'll move on to CWA, but Martin Moran would come in and he would teach a lot of lucha to us because we were joining together and whatnot, So, I mean, I learned I still learn to this day. I mean, you can't stop learning, no matter where you go. And that's, I mean, promoting wrestling, whatever, managing, whatever, so.
Yeah. So when you got into training, was it what you expected, or what were some of the like shocks, like, oh shit, this really hurts, or hey, I don't know if I really want to do this?
Oh yeah. You know what? I did all the sports in school and whatnot. I'm very athletic, and I'll tell you, wrestling was the hardest thing to get into, but I loved it, man. From the very first session, it was something I knew I wanted to do for sure. Now, did I go about the right choices on, you know what I mean? On how I went about, like, I guess, and we'll get to the CWA and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, it was definitely hard though, for sure. Now, people that sit there and make fun of wrestling or whatever, man, it's one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life. And it took a lot of dedication. And the thing about these kids nowadays is, and I'm not knocking them, but they don't understand the dedication it takes to, train for years and not get anything, or not go anywhere, or not do anything, because back then they didn't have as much wrestling like that, like there is now, So, I mean, I think a lot of guys, my years, I've been doing it 20 years now. In fact, you're asking me when I started, I think I started training either December 99 or January 2000. I can't remember. And that's the thing about Jesse's schools, is he would have a list on the wall, and he would just write your name and lesson 1, 2, 3, and you just keep going, And so, so somewhere around there, you know what I mean?
So when did you debut, and talk us about your experience in your first match? Was it for EWF?
Yeah, I believe, funny thing is I wrestled. Okay. So, it was for EWF, was one of my first matches. Honestly, I can't remember my first exact match because we did a lot of practice matches back in the day. So I don't remember what was considered my first official match. I mean, in front of a crowd, obviously, but, I just know that when I started the CWA thing, I had a newborn, so I wasn't able to go to Jesse's like I wanted to anymore, or at least as often as I like. So I thought, well, man, maybe I should get something local so I can at least work out in my ring and do whatever. Well, that turned into running and starting a promotion and training people that maybe I shouldn't have been the best trainer in the world at that time. But you know what? I mean, I was taught with a great foundation. So I think that, that helped a lot. And then we started running shows pretty regularly after that, So I think those were actually personally my first matches were CWA matches. And then once my guys got really good, I personally think they did. Then we end up doing the CW. Then Jesse, I caught a hold of Jesse. Hey, can I bring one of my guys down, have a match? Had a good match, and it was really good. I believe one of the better matches of that night. And there was a lot of good cards on that show, good matches on that show. So I don't know if that would answer your question, but I think it's pretty close, I think. So.
Yeah, no, it did. And before we get right into the CWA, tell us how you came up with the gimmick for the Billy Blade gimmick.
So, by the way, this is my Coke Zero, guys. I'm 18 months sober, and this is how I contemplate it. Now, Billy Blade is kind of a funny story I always tell because I'm a huge vampire fan. And it wasn't so much even Gangrel. That's what's funny about everything is like how things worked out. And I'll tell you some weird stories about me and Gangrel in this because it's crazy how we end up together with all the similarities and everything. So when I was looking for a name, I was going through my DVDs to watch a movie, and my vampire movies are always there. And Blade was there, and then Lost Boys, and then Blade, and then something. And I'm like, Lost Boys, Billy Blade. And I started using Lost Boy Billy Blade. I thought that was cool. And the funny thing is, if you're a vampire fan, you realize that Blade is actually Vampire Hunter, which is kind of funny. But I just thought the cool Billy Blade thing was kind of cool, And Lost Boy's favorite movie all time. It's all tattooed all over my arms, So I just went with that, and then we started doing the Lost Boys or the Empire or Immortal Fear, And I don't know if you're going to talk about that later now, But it just kind of stuck, and we just started doing the gothic thing, And then a lot of people started telling me I look like Gangrel. And the funny thing, I wasn't really trying to, which is weird about the whole situation. I used to have my hair straight, and I just eyeliner, some fangs. Caden, Chris Cage, Caden Anthony, he never really wanted to do the fangs, but back then he looked way more gothic to me. If you remember, he had the beard, he had the hair, he had a beard at 16 or whatever. So it was crazy how how we kind of went well together. So.
Yeah, so you got into it about, you wanted to see wrestling in your area, and that's how it started. So tell us how it was starting to promote your own shows and how CWA came about.
Yeah, so CWA, California Wrestling Alliance, like I said, I was home a lot. I had a newborn. I couldn't do much, and I didn't want to just quit wrestling and wait and go back because people sometimes don't go back. I had a place that doesn't have wrestling at all, and it was like 2, 3, 4 hours, the closest wrestling promotion. And I think I had a pretty good grasp on kind of wrestling, how it works and whatever. But I mean, again, I didn't know a lot, but I knew enough to where I could get a show going. So I just, I started getting scouting, and this is a funny story. I used to work at a toy store, and KB Toys is an assistant manager. And I, of course, knew all about the wrestling stuff in the store. So anytime somebody came and talked about wrestling, action figures, whatever, I'd let them know about my wrestling school. Fast forward to where my school was about to open. And the school was basically really teaching basics, this and that. Because, I mean, I didn't know everything. And I never claimed to know anything. But I knew drills. I knew that it took just nothing but repetition over and over and over to get everything right. And that's what we did. And back to the toy store, all of a sudden, Chris Cage, a.k.a. Caden Anthony, he would show up. I mean, a bunch of people. Next thing you know, he had a whole trampoline.
Kid Omega said that's where he learned about training from, was at that toy store from you.
Yeah, and the funny thing, they had a trampoline wrestling federation. It was funny because Caden actually had his backyard was like right to the high school. Like he's right next to the high school. So you could jump on a trampoline and look at the and then look at the football players and stuff. I've never seen it. I never seen them really doing it because they started with us, but the trampoline was still in the backyard. I mean, Caden started training and whatnot, so that's how we got it started. We started running shows. 2002 was our first major show. And when you ask about first matches, you were talking about smaller matches. All the smaller matches, I mean, they kind of blend together, so many of them in the beginning. But my first major match, I'd say I consider not my first match period, but I'd say my first match where I learned I learned so much in one little match. When they say little, but it wasn't. I think you might have been there for it because we had, you were there for it. In fact, you probably have footage of it, but it was me and Caden, or Chris Cage at the time, versus the Ballards, and Melissa was on one side and we had a girl on the other side. The same match with S.A. Rios and Nova. I mean, Mysterioso. I mean, there was all kind of Raquel. Everybody was there. I don't remember, but we drew like it was Lompoc. That was March 2002 was our first major show because we ran shows in our gym for months before that, maybe a year before that. And what we would do is we run every 2 weeks and sell out in our little gym with 80 people. And what happened is I want to thank Martin Marin because Martin would bring a bunch of his guys and then join him with my guys. Like guys like I think you had John, and we had Cholo and Silver Tiger and Infernal and R2K. I mean, the list goes on. Black Metal. I mean, and they would come every 2 weeks and we'd have like these gym shows and it just made everybody better. And I'd bring guys like Vinny Massaro and, I mean, just you name it. It was a huge thing. And then so in 2002, we debuted at Lompoc Boys and Girls Club was our first big show. You were at that one, man. I think we had like 600 people. First show we ever did, and it was a huge, and the Ballards, I learned a lot. That was like the first team I really learned a lot from because me and Caden were tag team and I never knew that much about tag team wrestling until I started working at Ballards. And man, I don't care what anybody says. They're probably the best tag team in the world, in my opinion. Like when it comes to learning from them and just their creativity on tag team wrestling, and wrestling in general, actually.
Right. And how was it, speaking of tag teams, how was it now teaming with Caden as Immortal Fear?
Oh, I mean, what's funny is like I said, Caden and me like just clicked. It was perfect. Like what he could do, I could do the other side. I'm lefty, he's righty. So everything we can do, like we matched real well. And even the Ballards used to say that they were really, he thought we were really good. I think we just didn't have a guidance on where to go. Because, we still, I trained them and they were young and new. And like I was telling you about SoCal Uncensored. They hated us. I don't know so much they hated us. They just didn't want to acknowledge us. So for a long time, they called us a PlayStation Fed. So all our results we'd send in, they say were fake and whatever, until they finally seen us perform at the marketplace. They're like, oh, you know what? These people are real and they're actually pretty good, you know? Well, yeah, I mean, you know, that's the problem with wrestling sometimes is people, you know, judge too quickly, you know, on people. And, yeah, tag team. And I've been doing a tag team for many years. I mean, besides Caden, you know, the Immortal Fear thing, I thought we traveled all over, you know, California doing that. And, you know, we end up forming Rock of Love back after that. And I'm sure we'll get to that, you know. You know, but I feel like I've mostly done tag team wrestling, even though I've done a lot of singles. Tag team wrestling to me was just a lot more fun, especially I don't even know if it'd be that way if it wasn't for really wrestling the Ballards that one match and them showing us like a bunch of cool stuff. And guys like Vinny Massaro knew a lot about tag team wrestling with the Grimes brothers and whatnot, and Vic Grimes and stuff like that. So, you know, just a combination. I think we had a lot of people around us that were helping us through all that kind of stuff. You know, Mike Modest, Donovan Morgan, those guys, you know, were around too. Like, so we had a lot of people around us to kind of make us better. And I think that helps a lot. You know, we didn't have a lot of egos back then, you know, it didn't feel like it. And I think you remember that too, you know?
Yeah, it was, I didn't know that Lone Park show was your first like big show. And it was
First
great,
ever,
man.
yeah.
I mean, I got to meet, S.A. Rios Mr. was one of my Lucha Libre idols. So it's kind of cool that I was able to go back. You let us backstage and interview him. We interviewed Nova, B-Boy, Little Cholo.
That's
Vinny,
right. B-Boy, Little Cholo.
B-Boy, Little Cholo were there. Silver Tiger was there. Vinny wrestled.
Three-way. They did a three-way.
Yeah.
Yep. Vinny and Xarian. Hey, did you know that main event? Funny story about that main event. It was supposed to be Super Crazy versus Nova, ECW reunion. And Super Crazy, somebody told him that we weren't legit or something. So he didn't show up. So he didn't show up, and Martin was able to get S.A. Rios, you know. Funny story, and Omega will contest to this, and so will Caden and all. That's pretty funny. Martin got on the microphone after the show. I think it was on the show. I can't remember, but it was pretty funny. He got on the microphone and said, you know what? Mark my words. Chris Jericho will be here within a year or something. I don't know what it was. Because, you know, he knew Chris pretty well, and it was pretty funny. Still waiting for Chris to show up, though. I mean, I heard he's doing some good things nowadays, but
but no, I remember coming back with Vinny, and you know, on the road trip down, I even have video of this where he's talking about like you never know who's gonna be the next best thing. You know, he goes, "This is, you know, I've only been working CWA maybe once or twice, but you never know. You never know where your break is going to come from." So that's why Vinny's like, you got to work all these shows in all these places.
And you know what? I want to put over somebody, because I don't know if I have yet, but Ron Head was came in and become our like ring announcer. Ron Head was so good. I always loved the fact he had an X in his beard. I could have never figured out how he did it, because I could never keep mine doing it. You know, I couldn't grow a beard then, you know, a long hair, you know, I know how to, you know, he was super cool. He's still friends with me to this day. He was really good. He would record his own matches and commentate. You know, John Phenomenon. I know he was there on your show recently. John was fun. The funny thing, I listened to your interview. By the way, I want to give you guys props. I really appreciate all the old footage and stuff. I think a lot of the other guys appreciate it too. You know, John, man, it's funny. He's still the same John when you talk to him, man, laughing, having a good time. You know, those are the kind of people I like to have in my shows. And I try not to have a lot of drama. You know, I just want to have fun. I was young and dumb, and I just want to have fun. And, you know, I trust what people say, like Vinny and all those guys, because they've been around before me, and I think we created good TV, so to speak. You know,
tell us about some of your experiences while you were promoting for CWA. You also branched out and started getting booked in NorCal at places like Big Time Wrestling and Supreme Pro Wrestling up in Sacramento. So tell us about your experiences there.
Oh yeah, man, those are some fun times. I love NorCal like wrestling. I used to. Another company besides them that I used to really like, actually, I want to say I started really at them as well as PCW with MPT and Schizo. Man, the very first show I did with them, so many people thought I was Gangrel back in the day, you know, but it was funny. But I just remember it was the show that I think Rick Luxury, I don't remember who was all in it, but they went through the ring. Did you ever hear about that one?
No, no, no.
Yeah, they went off a 20-foot ladder, 12-foot ladder, whatever it is, and they did a move and it went through the ring. It was up in but anyway, PCW, SPW was really super cool. Shoot, man, I remember I was there before Sir Samurai was even a wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
He was a ring announcer.
He was a ring
my
announcer,
biggest feud, my biggest feud back in the day was in SPW. Me and Adam Thornstowe had a lot of matches against each other. Like we were feuding a lot. Like I don't know if we did Iron Man matches, whatever, but I know we had a lot of matches together. I know that was a huge feud. I remember I went up there, funny story. I wrestled B-Boy up there one-on-one. No, I'm sorry, I wrestled Cholo one-on-one up there at SPW. I remember, I think you mentioned on something, and it was funny because I always hear about B-Boy's kicks to his back, you know. His kicks to his back are stiff as hell. And, you know, I was like, okay, well, I guess I remember I thought I was going to wrestle them together, but it ended up being just Cholo, and B-Boy managed him. So they set up a goddamn angle to throw me out of the ring so B-Boy can get his kick in me, you know. What's the point of that, right? They set it up to give me that goddamn kick in the outside of the ring, you know. So it is what it is, but it was, you know, I mean, SPW is super cool. BTW, Kirk White's been there and done that. You know, the guy, you know, I know he's got a lot of heat over the years, but I mean, he has a really solid company. He brings in a lot of stars, and it gives a lot of people opportunities to work people that they normally wouldn't be able to work. And let's be honest, he draws the best crowds in the world. I mean, in the California scene for the most part. APW's up there now, of course, but I mean, Kirk's been constant ever since I've been around 20 years, you know. So BTW is a great place. You know, I really have no negative on anything in Northern California. Everybody was super cool with me, and you know, even Gold Rush, as I know, but not back in the day, but I mean, just all those guys, you know, I mean, they all have great companies, and they're all still around. Go figure. You know which ones are doing it right if they're still around, and that's just how it works usually, you know. And I mean, and you know, other people have they go different avenues in life, which makes complete sense. But you could tell the ones that back in the day, you know, you could tell which ones were going to stay around, you know, guys like Kirk White and even PCW and SPW and you know, BTW, you know, everybody, you know. So I can't remember. There's so many. The thing about NorCal, they had so many flash in the pan promotions back in the day, which, you know, that they have a thing called a bump card, obviously, and a lot of people are overdoing their bump card nowadays. But the bump card, you know, I always wish some of these flash in the pan promotions. I probably wish I got a lot of experience. I got to work with a lot of big names, some of these places, but I kind of wish I would have not done those shows, because then my bump card wouldn't be so full for a flash and pen promotion that's not going to be around, you know. That's the only regret, I guess, you know, when it comes to something like that for NorCal wrestling, you know, or SoCal. So,
right. So now let's talk about the partnership with APW and how that went down, because after APW split and Pro Wrestling Iron started, APW started to branch out to different areas. One was Central Coast, so they had APW. I think they did like APW SF, APW Central Coast, and then APW LA, right?
Yeah, actually, they had 4, actually. So they had APW San Francisco, Central Valley, Central Coast, and LA. Now, Central Valley didn't last as long, but it was actually ran out of that Fat Cats back in the day. And it was a cool little – yeah, and there was a cool I mean, I got to wrestle Scott Lost in one of those matches and a few – I mean, I always had really cool matches. I think a guy named Mike Daniel and a Dave Touchstone, I think. They were 2 guys that tried to set it up for Central Valley, but they were real new in promoting. So and then Henry Luna for LA, you know, and so how it came about is I know that I was working with Gabe and I started wrestling for APW regularly, and they wanted to do some kind of territories, you know, so, and, you know, who knows if that was kind of trying to get back at Iron, who knows with what they were thinking and what they were even telling me, to be fair, you know. I know me and Roland at the time, we got along, but, you know, we didn't get Gabe and them had more of a say so back in the day. So, we would just do APW, like I said, all 4 different brands, and they knew we were regularly. And me being a smaller end promotion, APW is one of the companies I remember when you were talking about indie wrestling in the beginning of this. So us joining APW, I thought was a step in the right direction, because we were just going to stay at this level and we're going to work above, you know, that was my vision as a promoter. It's only going to help us and not, you know, make us go farther down. And it did. We brought in a lot of talent. You know, I know you mentioned the Ballards and SATs, and then all of a sudden end up being B-Boy and Vic Grimes and James Choi and Jardy France, and also Melissa Anderson had to get a dive in there somewhere, I guess, you know.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I remember that match had a Super Dragon and Brian XL was supposed to be Amazing Red, but Amazing Red got injured, so we had to bring in XL. But that was our very first show as APW Central Coast, by the way. So we wanted to kick it off with a big time feel, so to speak. The thing about that show, it was cool, man. Don't get me wrong. I mean, APW Central Coast, it went as well as it could. We had our own champions. We did whatever we could. Super Dragon was cool. People talk so great about Super Dragon and whatever. I personally, I never liked the guy. He was a dick to me. The whole time I've ever had him, he's a dick to me. He was a dick all the time until he got confronted. I confronted the guy, and he wanted to call the cops on me. Go figure. Tough guy, isn't he? But we had him in that match, and the funny thing is, that was supposed to be our first match at APW, and you've got a guy named Brian XL, and all you have Super Dragon, supposed to be two of the top guys. Brian XL, maybe, I don't know if he's a top guy, but he was just like Amazing Red, basically, you know. And then I wanted a really good match, and what did he go do? He go out there and he basically did a submission match in a crowd that's doesn't know anything about mat wrestling and whatever, you know. And I remember he won with a submission. He worked the leg or whatever it was the whole match, and basically killed the vibe of the crowd, you know. And I think he did it on purpose. And it is what it is. You know how that goes. But it was a good way to start the show. I mean, we had good names. I'm not knocking any of these guys anymore. You know, I forgive and forget. I don't really, you know, at this point. It's a great thing, and it kicked off real well. And APW, I don't know how long that actually lasted. We just eventually just kind of stopped calling the names again and just went back to APW. Eventually is what happened.
So then Gabe Ramirez split from APW to start Pro Wrestling Revolution. And I know, I believe you had a role in Revolution as well. What was your role when Pro Wrestling Revolution started?
Oh, yeah. So basically, that's what I was saying. So we went from APW Central Coast to back to APW, and then we started running against. We were running in Santa Maria, and we started running at the high school in Santa Maria High School. We were the very first show at the high school. We drew 900 people, which is amazing, you know, for independent wrestling, for any kind of wrestling, really. And the funny thing is, quick, a few second story is, they didn't even know we would draw at the Santa Maria High School, because that was not even including any students. The fans, they didn't help us. It was all we rented the building and whatnot, so there was no help from the school. They didn't think we'd draw because they didn't see any advertisement, so they only brought so much food to sell to make money off the concessions. And literally, they were sold out before the first match because they didn't draw. They didn't think we'd draw, so they end up, you know, whatever. But we had about 900 people. It was an APW show. We had the Mexican minis, you know. We had, you know, Mascarita, was it Sagrada? Might have been Sagrada. No, it was Octagoncito and Peruth and stuff like that. I believe that might have been APW. I can't remember. But the point I'm making is, as we booked our next show, again, me and Gabe started talking, and eventually we decided we're going to start another company and let APW do their thing up north and whatnot, and more lucha based, so to speak, you know. And so our first match, as tentatively Revolution, I think, if I remember right, it was Hijo Rey Mysterio versus one of the Border Patrol, and that was the main event. I can remember, but I just remember I wrestled Kazarian on the same show, and that was my trainer, so it was really cool to you know, one of the guys helped train me when it was really super cool to have him one-on-one. And so then it was Mysterio, Border Patrol, and we drew 1,800 people now. So now it's whoa, maybe this should be our own thing and not having too many, you know, not have too many chiefs, not enough Indians, so to speak. And so we end up starting our own thing. It was me and Gabe, and I think it was just me and Gabe, and we started Revolution. Now he came up with the name and whatever, but it was based off our shows because they went so well. If those didn't go well, I don't know if he would start Revolution. Who knows? So it's based off that. So what happened is, if you're drawing 1,800 people, you can only imagine how much money you made on the show. I mean, it was a decent amount of money. And so then I remember we booked another show 6 months later, and that was Revolution, full-on Revolution. That was Border Patrol versus Rey Mysterio Sr. and Rey Mysterio Hijo, which is Aaron. His name's Aaron, his legit son. And that was the main event. So basically, for the tag titles, Revolution tag titles, and Mysterio and them won. is huge, you know, we had 2,200 people, somewhere around there, you know? So this is, if it wasn't for Santa Maria and let's say my crowd, because it wasn't like, I was here living here. I'm the one flyering and postering, and Gabe came down and a couple other people, but it was mostly, it was a lot to do with my sponsors from locally and everything. We worked good together on, and, you know, cause Gabe can do the flyers. He's a good graphic designer or whatnot. So anyway, we just, the problem is we were only coming to now we started running San Jose and all the Oakland and all these different cities. Revolution was starting to get out there, which is great. And then he asked me, he's like, hey, do you want to work with Dave Marquez? I'm like, not really, you know? And he was like, you know, he's like, well, check this out. He has this insurance policy where all you have to do is join, and you can get their insurance policy if you join NWA, and you only have to pay $125 a year or something a year. See, what thing is that was a scam that David Marquez was putting out there. And I don't care if he knows, because everybody knows about it. And if you don't know about it, you know now. And I guess the insurance only worked if you only drew 150 or 125 or less. Well, we were drawing thousands of people. So, you know, I didn't know that. I don't think Gabriel Ramirez knew that. So we were NWA for a while there. And then next thing, you know, I think that's why, you know, Oliver John was winning the NWA title, and I don't know if he actually won it, but I know he had it and all that stuff. So eventually Revolution, I told Gabe, I said, look, I have a school in town. In fact, I had a school that was Revolution School. And I said, I gotta run shows, because I got all these students, and I can't just sit there and, you know, wait every 6 months to run a show. And you're more lucha based, because he had a set roster, so to speak, you know? Right. And so eventually I said, I'm going to have to start my own thing, you know, and run shows. And I don't think he didn't like that. And actually my big falling out, and the only reason I'll mention the falling out with Gabe is because I sent him a message maybe 2-3 years ago, and I felt like it was time. And so on Father's Day, I actually texted him and told him, you know, happy Father's Day, you know, whatever. I tried to just in case, you know, you never know what happened nowadays. So, he responded and said the same thing, and that's all. But I mean, the falling out over the thing is I wanted to start Vendetta Pro Wrestling. So I end up, so I told him, I said, I got to start something so I can run more regularly. And so I started it, and I don't know if he just didn't want me to start it because he wanted me to focus on Revolution, or if that was going to take away from running Revolution in Santa Maria. I don't know, but we started running some more Revolution, and it just slowly kind of boiled over to the fact where one time we bought a trailer together, and it was stored at my venue or at my gym. And next thing you know, he called me and asked me for the trailer. And the whole agreement was for me to have the trailer, is the fact that I was going to use it to go to do my shows as well. So I didn't have to rent a truck or whatever. Right. Well, he called me out of the blue and told me he wanted the trailer because his parents had a trailer that broke down and they need that trailer. I said, well, am I going to get it back? And he couldn't promise me I'm getting it back or anything. Well, what about my shows? It was almost like, screw your shows, I need for my show. And then eventually, and then I'm like, I talked to his wife, and next thing you know, he called me and literally started cussing at me, threatening me, calling me names, talking major crap to me. I'm like, are you serious? All the stuff that we've done over the years, that's how we're ending things. And literally we didn't talk for 8 years, 10 years, whatever it is, until I texted him, but I didn't even talk to him,
Yeah.
But it is what because we ran the shows and I was going to talk about that on there too. We ran those shows at Cauliflower Alley Club too, together, those are part of Revolution, which were pretty much our shows, together, so.
Staying in the theme of Lucha Libre, you did get an opportunity to work in Mexico, and tell us about that opportunity and any other opportunity you had to work internationally besides Mexico.
Yeah, Mexico was super cool, man. The first time I wrestled in Mexico, I'm trying to think. The first time was first time I got to work in Monterrey, Mexico, and that was super cool. They flew us down. This goes to some of these young guys that start at a school. They should realize they never bite the hand to feed you or whatever you want. Don't knock the people that brought you into the business, like my Jesse Hernandez. I always put over Jesse Hernandez because he's what's right about the business, in my opinion. He needed some guys. He gave me a call. You want to work in Monterrey? Well, of course, And he flew me down. This is when I was doing the vampire thing still. I got flown down to Monterrey. It was a nightmare. When I see by nightmare, as in me and Gangrel sitting in the airport for 6 hours for some reason. We don't know why, you know. And then we get to our hotel, and then we got to our hotel, and we had to go straight to the building. Actually, I don't even know if no, I'm sorry. We didn't go to the hotel. We got straight to the building, and we had to get out, get dressed, go right straight to our match. I don't get why, but we did. You know? And let me just tell you, it wasn't. It was a huge, huge show. So like you had Mystical, and I just remember Mystical being there. I remember Haku was there for some reason. It was America versus Mexico kind of show. So it was me, Gangrel, and Joey Mercury versus La Parca, Dos Carrols Jr., which is Alberto Del Rio, and Marco Coleone. That's a huge match, you know. Those three are huge names in Mexico. So we're like, to me, I'm over here, you know, because I'm the only guy in this whole crew that's kind of like really don't have any TV. So I'm like, man, this is huge for me, you know. This is a sold-out arena. And it was crazy. The match went well, except for like La Parca was super funny because he was, I think he was smoking weed and smoking the cigarettes inside a little prayer area in the arena where you go to pray. It was weird, you know. But when we did the match, it was super cool. So during a match, I'm supposed to take La Parca's finisher, which the finisher is not hard taking the finisher. It's the fact that him and Gangrel had a miscommunication. Gangrel, funny story, Gangrel thought he said to rip his mask. In Mexico, that's huge to start ripping masks. So he's ripping his mask. If you ever seen Gangrel, he's very intense. And all of a sudden, La Parca got pissed because I don't think that's what he meant to say. And so he came in with a chair, and Gangrel got a chair, and they were starting to go at it with chairs. And me and Dos Carrols, Alberto, we're on the outside, and he speaks English. So he's like, hey, I said, I don't know what the fuck is going on right now. I said, I'm supposed to go in and take a finisher from La Parca, but I'm not going in there. I don't know what's going on, you know? And so I missed my spot, so to speak, because I didn't want to go in there because they were going off each other. I don't know what was going on, you know. Everybody was fine after and all that, you know, with some cervezas and whatever. But that was a huge, you know. And then, so, yeah, Monterrey was really – that was the biggest part of biggest time in Mexico. I did do the obviously – I went to Mexicali was super cool. We did 2 shows that day, one on the other side of the border, and then Mexicali came in, and it was me and Richie Slade. By the way, check out Richie Slade, super guy, super great wrestler, up and coming wrestler. And we wrestled 2 other guys from California as well. It was supposed to be Fidel Bravo and the Sasha Derevko, but then somebody got hurt, so we switched out. But it was crazy. We did a tag match, and I never had money thrown in the ring, and they were throwing money and stuff, which is kind of cool, you know. I heard that's a great compliment, right? So then that was cool. Then I got to do Mexico, of course, Tijuana at the auditorium, and I got to stand in that tunnel, which is super cool, you know. So, you know, I know that in the matches, I teamed up with Ray Horace, he was doing the Mysterio gimmick at the time, and then Tony Casanova, and we went against a guy named Black Abyss and a guy named there was 3 guys and Spectro, and then is it Spectro? Does that sound right?
Is that the one with the green mask?
Green mask.
The wig? Yeah.
Yeah. Spectro, I think, passed away, not too long ago, about a year or 2 ago. And then one more guy, just remember the 3rd guy, but it was cool because they called me, like, it was weird. They didn't have my name. They called me like the Rocker of Love. It was weird. They didn't even have Billy Blade. They had like the Rockero of Amor or something like that. It was kind of weird, you know. But then that was, you know, that was throughout my career. But I'd say 95 was my first time hitting overseas. We went to Japan. And I got to tour Japan with Nathan Rules back in the day. Nathaniel Sweet. Let's see if people remember that one. But Nathan.
APW,
yeah. Yeah, so that was super cool. Got to work with some guys like Asian Cougar and Asian Condor and all kinds of like, what was the guy? Chapa Pipi. Man, I can't remember the manager from Kind Tai, you know.
Yeah.
He was there, and he was super cool the first couple shows, and Sumi Sakai came to our shows. I mean, it was a who's who when we were down there, and that was super cool. Never experienced in Japan, you know. Then we did Portugal was super cool. I got to tour Portugal, and it was crazy because me and Derek Sanders, APW, we wrestled each other in a mask. He did like an American mask gimmick, and I did a lucha gimmick, and we wrestled each other one-on-one every show in Portugal. And then later wrestled guys without our masks. So then I got to work because I had a little bit more lucha experience than the other guys. I was working at La Hijo Rey Mysterio 3 out of 4 nights, which I wasn't supposed to. So the tour had like Balls Mahoney, Big Vito, Mysterio. It had the Luchadors, had Mascarita, Dorada, and Peruth on the show. And every tour was so special. But I'll get to the last one right now. Give me 1 second. This tour in Portugal, Mysterio was super over. I mean, they thought that was Rey Mysterio, but it was Hijo Rey Mysterio, because in the advertising it had the little Hijo.
Of course,
you can't see. Yeah, of course. And it was awesome because like it was cool for us. And the cool thing, Portugal, it was super cool. The very first show was we stayed in a hotel, and it was like all the beach, and you had the water park that was like connected to the beach. And I remember one little quick story. Me and Mysterio went onto the beach, and you got Peruth and Mascarita Dorada, or Mascarita or El Torito, they call them now. They're on the beach trying to show off, and they have their fanny packs on in their thong underwear only, trying to get walk around. Kind of remind me of that of the Will Ferrell and them, the Night at Roxbury, where they're walking on the beach.
Yeah.
It was hilarious. And then eventually they end up. Anyway, Mysterio was so over there, man. They had pyro and everything. I just remember that was my first show, and I was the main event. And all of a sudden, I'd come out there and I put my jacket down, a really nice jacket, and the fans stole it. I remember that. But all of a sudden, here comes Mysterio, and all of a sudden, oh, boom, boom, all this pyro. We're like, whoa, And anyway, that was super cool. And I did that. We did that every night. And then the very last night, we got to wrestle in front of the president and vice president of the country where we're at in Portugal. And that was super cool, even though I didn't know who they were or whatever. And I did two characters every night. So it was, Balls Mahoney was on a tour. He was super cool. I'll tell you real quick rib on that one. He told me, my Balls was not real happy with the promoter because he couldn't get his prescription pills across the border. So his pain pills. So he had to go to a hospital to get them. He had a fake injury to go get them. He kept getting them, and he was getting fined because he was crushing the pills, on the table and stuff, and taking them, whatever, because they make them more strong, I guess. But the rib he pulled on me is my hair. He was so mad as a promoter that he's just going to break the ring tonight, and he wants me to gig him. He says, "Oh, what I want you to do is take these scissors. I'm going to act like I'm going to cut your hair, and I want you to take them and drive them in my head." I'm like, oh shit, man. And a funny thing, I've never gigged ever, and I'm now I have to gig somebody. I'm so scared, I don't know what to do. We get out there, and right before we're about to go out, I asked him multiple times, "Hey man, so are you telling me you want me to take the scissors and actually like gag?" He's like, yeah. And then so I'm like, oh man, funny story is he was just ribbing me, because then he finally told me, right before we're going out, "Hey, no, I don't want you to really gig me that way. I just was joking with you." Man, I thought I was going to stab a guy.
You're already
Portugal,
practicing that side.
Yeah. Because he wanted me to actually, I thought, So it was crazy. But the last tour, the one big tour we did, I mean, I've wrestled all over the United States, which is cool. But the biggest tour I finally were on was me and Caden got picked to go on the Hulk Hogan Australian tour, which was super cool because it's the first time Hogan was ever in Australia. So that was 2009, and that was a legendary tour. Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair every night. It was me and Caden versus. It was supposed to be set up for us versus the Nasty Boys. You had Umaga's last tour before he passed away 4 days later. Ken Anderson, Shannon Moore, Matt Cross, Brutus Beefcake. That Sparky Ballard got his hair cut from Brutus Beefcake that tour. And he reffed, and then. It was all kinds of people, man. It was such a good tour, John Heidenreich of all people, Heidenreich was cool. And Australia was super cool, man. They treat us. We were 5-star hotels. Hogan and all those guys. I mean, it was super cool to be around. Ric Flair, last funny story is me and Caden wake up every night. We'd wake up late because it was a party every night because Orlando Jordan was there too. And it was just a party, Next thing you know, we wake up one morning. It was the last day of tour. We were done with the shows. And we woke up, and there's more tour, but we don't have as much time. But we woke up, me and Kane would come out. There's a bar, and there's nothing but Bloody Marys across the bar. I'm like, what is going on? It was Ric Flair, been up since 8 a.m, and he's buying everybody drinks. Those are $25 a pop, So we're like, holy crap, And so of course we drink one. You have to. It's Ric Flair, And next thing you know, it's time for us to go because the first group of people are leaving, and we're on a tour bus. and we get on the tour bus, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, we're on the bus, and here comes Ric Flair drunk, you know, and he comes in on the bus, and he's like, you know what? I want to let you guys know this is the best tour I've ever been on in my life. And I was like, wow, that meant a lot, you know, because it was, and Jimmy, you know, because Jimmy Hart was on the tour too. And it was set up. The shitty thing about the whole thing, it was all set up for the last show, which was in Sydney, and it was filmed for a big broadcast special. It was going to happen on national TV, and it got filmed. So this whole setup, you can actually look online, Rock of Love, Nasty Boys talk about the Rock of Love. It was all set up, even though we had other shows. This one last show is gonna is us versus Nasty Boys in a street fight, and is all kinds, everything. Basically, the biggest matches were at night. They filmed it, and I guess they owed Hulk Hogan money, and so the company went bankrupt, and it never got released because Hogan wouldn't let them release the TV show. So no footage is out there online except for what you see from fan cam footage.
So speaking of Rock of Love, how did the transition go from the tag team Immortal Fear to Rock of Love? It was at APW, right?
You know what? I don't know that it was APW. I'll tell you actually what happened is we were just trying to get away from the whole vampire gangrel thing. I mean, I know we'll talk about that, I'm sure, but like with me and Caden, like, you know, it kind of ran its course. I mean, it was me and Caden, and then we went singles, and eventually I started teaming up with Gangrel, and I'm sure we'll talk about that, which Gangrel teamed up. I also met Mike Rain came in the picture. So it was me and Mike Rain for a while there, Bloodline, and then Gangrel would come in when he could and whatnot. We were at Mike Rain's shows because I wanted to also put over, you know, even North American Wrestling, you know, all kinds of places like, you know, BTW, SBW, SoCal Pro Wrestling, you know, Pro Wrestling Bushido, NAW, and all those guys. I mean, in fact, PCW, like I said, I used to team up with Sarah Del Rey of all people, was my tag team partner there, you know. But NAW had a lot of up and coming wrestlers too, and we thought about coming out with different characters, me and Kaden. So we were going to call ourselves Viva La Rock, like Viva La Bam. Mm-hmm. And what we were going to do, we were going to come out and do prank stuff because I thought we were real creative at that point where we could come up with cool tag team maneuvers that included like pranks and slipping on a bananas and just stuff like that, you know. And we were real creative at that point as a team. And we went to NAW in Fresno, and we called ourselves Viva La Rock. It came out, and I had the flashy shirt, and I don't remember, I think I wore a bandana with my hair out and whatnot. And all of a sudden people started calling us as a rib, the Cock of Love. I don't even know why. Cause that show was real popular, you know, the Rock of Love was real popular. They started calling us Cock of Love. So the very next show, me and Caden came out. I straightened my hair like Bret Michaels. He came out with drumsticks. We had shiny shirts, bandanas, and all of a sudden we got on the microphone and we turned it on them and basically told them, hey, you know, you guys asked for it. Here's the Rock of Love. And then we started like coming out with Poison music. And it's crazy how full circle things come, because now fast forward to 2021 and I'm best friends with Big John, who's Bret Michaels' head of security, and Rock of Love. You know, he was on that TV show, and Sean Casey, who's best friends with John. It's just a way for full circle, you know. And it started out like that, and it was more of a rib on the fans, and they hated it because they kind of set it up, you know. And then them calling us Cock of Love is nothing but heat for us. Yeah. And so we got to work a bunch of tag teams over those years, you know, like Reno Scum, and I mean all the great tag teams, you know, Vinny and Big Ugly, you know. I mean, we worked all the best tag teams in the world, and or at least in California, and you know, we're thankful for it, because I think Rock of Love kind of like gave us a fresh breath there, like, and it was real current. We had backstage passes, a story about what was it, Modesto. We did a thing where we do a promo, and we have the backstage passes. If you get backstage pass, you get to come backstage a party with us, and we invited a girl in the ring, and about to put it over her head and just let her know that there's a weight limit to be in the Rock of Love, and you do not qualify. You're way overweight. And she actually chased us to the back, and nobody even stopped her. So she chased us all the way through the Fat Cats to the outside in the parking lot. Finally, people were like, hey, you're not supposed to be chasing them. You know, it was like, so it was cool, man. We loved the gimmick. I mean, we did that for years, and it was great. We got to wrestle all over, you know, and Australia was just a top off. And really, I think Knox Pro, you know, I mean, give it up to Knox Pro as well, even though, you know, I don't really talk to him anymore, but like Rock, I mean, a lot of my students we got asked by Gangrel to kind of, and others, and we're teaching on them to help their wrestlers out because they were just coming up and coming, you know, guys like Rusev and guys like they were all coming up and coming, and they needed people to work with. And we, at that point, had been around for about 10 years, you know, or whatever, you know, so they knew they could trust me and Caden and Tsunami and, you know, any guy. I mean, I brought all the, you know, APW guys. We talked about bringing all the APW down, and it was cool, man. We got a lot of people. Jody Christopherson started working there. Marcus started coming down and managing. He brought all the guys, and eventually we all started working together, you know, eventually, you know.
Right. Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. Now let's talk about Bloodline. Let's talk about you tagging with Gangrel.
Well, yeah, Gangrel was super cool. I mean, you know, over the years, you know, when I first started, like I said, I did the vampire thing. I really so much wasn't even focused on Gangrel. I was just such a vampire fan, and I didn't know, you know, I was just doing my own thing, really. But then all of a sudden people started saying I look like Gangrel, so I'm like, oh, wow, yeah. So I started eventually working more like wearing a puffy shirt, and, you know, and when me and Caden started going singles, I thought to myself, if I'm going to, like, be like his character, so to speak, then I obviously need to team up with him, or I need to do something, because it's not really fair to his character. I know, you know, I mean, I know people get flattered by, you know, what they say, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. But I thought that if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have him with me. I mean, that's just the bottom line. So one of the first shows in Lompoc, we teamed up, and I think you have footage of that, but we teamed up, and I don't remember who we went up against, but Luna Vachon managed us, I think. No, I'm sorry. I wrestled Caden. I think he wrestled Bo Cooper, and Luna teamed up with and something like that. But when Luna seen us together, but I'm sorry, it was in the Pomo, but we teamed up. I think it was Vinny and Vic or something. I don't remember. But
one match I do have is you and Caden against. You and Gangrel against the Ballard Brothers, I want to say. I think.
That's what it was. And so the ripped shirt.
Yeah,
that's right. The ripped shirt. So David, you know, Gangrel had to buy all his own shirts. Even in WWE, he had to buy his own shirts. And he just bought a shirt and you're right. It was me and Gangrel versus the Ballards. And he sweats a lot, but he also wets himself with his hair, you know, and sprays himself down. And they went to grab his back and ripped his shirt. He was so pissed about his shirt. And I bet you to this day, he still brings it up, I would assume. And, but yeah, so we started teaming, and Luna, according to David, here's a funny story. So the flyer has me and a girl named Rio Storm and Gangrel, and Rio Storm was our manager, and she was this buff, gothic looking girl from Ultimate Pro Wrestling. And we matched real well, and she was real buff, you know, and really cool chick. And she ended up, Gangrel ended up taking a flyer home, and it had us three in the photo in the corner of the flyer. And Luna got so pissed at him because she thought, oh, no, I'm sorry. It wasn't me and him. Gangrel was in the middle here. It was me and Luna, me and that Rio in the corner. It was just me and her. And he took that home. She took that home. I'm sorry. Gangrel took it home, and she got pissed because she thought that was him with Rio. And then when she realized it wasn't him, she got pissed and like basically told him, I was like, you guys need to be a team. You guys look that much alike, you know? So like, oh, well. And so we just started teaming up from that point forward all over, and whenever we could, you know, because I mean, I still have to bring the guy in and all that, and money wise and booking wise and whatnot, you know, if it made sense and dollars and cents. So, you know, and I learned a lot. I mean, it was great to have him as a team. I mean, I personally think we could have been on TV. I just think we had a lot of, there was a lot of stuff going on with his name, Gangrel, that he didn't own the name as White Wolf, and WWE had a contract with White Wolf, and it ended. And they didn't want to pay the millions of dollars to get the name back, because that's why they didn't bring him back right away, you know? And so eventually so when I would go backstage, because when I first started, I got a tryout. Me and Caden got a tryout with Tom Pritchard, with Jesse Hernandez and Bakersfield at the Dome. And it went decent, but I try to get spots in. I didn't know any better back in the day. So I just did spot fest, you know, me and Caden and Gangrel, I think we could have easily been on TV. There's no doubt. Like, the vampire thing was so, I guess, ahead of its time. And when he came out, and then when Kevin Thorne started going on TV, I know they were talking about bringing him in, Who knows about me, maybe me. I mean, they want to do a group of vampires, and it just ended up falling over. In fact, they just ended up doing, was it Kevin Thorne and Ariel? But Gangrel was under contract at Deep South, or WWE contract, but he would come up to Deep South every week. So when I would go backstage for WWE, they wouldn't even use me as extras, even though I'd get there and get paid and enjoy their great catering. They would never use me because I look so much like him, and they don't want the stuff going on with the White Wolf. So, or the fans being confused because they were doing angles with the Undertaker at one point. Undertaker and Viscera Gangrel and Viscera were going to jump Undertaker, and they don't want to ruin that. There's a lot of little reasons, but then we end up doing the Deep South. So that's when me and Mike Rain started touring the East Coast and whatever, and eventually we end up doing. I was going to go to Deep South. So I went down there, and they had me and Gangrel scheduled to wrestle Henry Godwin and Ray Gordy, which is Terry Gordy's son. And I forgot Festus and Jesse, eventually being Jesse on Tag Team Wrestling. And they wanted to try out the new Godwins. They were going to be the new Godwins against me and Gangrel. I was like, oh, here's a good chance for me. Last minute, they switched it up, and they teamed me up with a guy named Bully Douglas, and they put Gangrel, Kofi Kingston, and Gangrel was called Crazy Dave then because they couldn't use a name. So bottom line is, so I went to go relocate because Deep South was super cool. I didn't have to be under contract to be there. So like I had a great time training there and whatnot. And I told him, I said, well, I'm going to have to go to California and then relocate. So I called Jody Hamilton, which was the owner at the time. And I called him. I said, look, I'm looking to relocate the next week or two, if that's cool. And he's like, you know what? It's not a good time. And next thing you know, the next day or two, you see online that they came in and sweeped out Deep South, and all WWE affiliation was gone within a day or two. So there was my luck again, but the whole Bloodline thing, like I said, it was super cool to have, the experience of Gangrel, because he was one of those guys who's real respected from the veterans to the guys coming up,
Yeah.
And unfortunately we had a falling out, hopefully, maybe nothing happens between me or him. Like, hopefully we'll be able to mend whatever's, the falling out, and we'll see what happens. But he has a cool wrestling school now in Florida. I know it's going real well. Good for him. And the guy's a legend. I mean, the guy, although he's maybe never going to Hall of Fame or anything like that, the guy is a legend in my opinion, and best music, best entrance of all time, in my opinion.
So talk to us about Vendetta, and then talk about not being a part of Vendetta anymore, and then Pro Wrestling Unplugged.
Yeah. So like Vendetta basically started out, like I said, with Gabe. I just needed to do something, and I know he didn't want to do the Revolution because, he wanted more lucha. So I was like, you know what? Funny story about the Vendetta Pro name. I didn't really, I didn't come up with a name, actually. Brandon Bonham did, if you remember Brandon Bonham. He was living in Santa Maria and was training at our school, even though he's from like Minnesota or somewhere around there. He worked at a TV studio that was in my place called Cafe FX in Santa Maria. It was a really cool movie productions company. And he's like, man, one of these days I want to do Vendetta Pro Wrestling. I was like, I love that name, man. He's like, yeah, that's the name. I said, and then so I kind of came up. I asked him if I could use it. He's like, yeah, I'm never going to use it. I just like the name. I'm like, oh, cool, So I just started using it. Started doing a V for Vendetta, like the movie and all that. So I thought that was kind of cool. And our very first show, it was a great show. It was unfortunately the day we ran it, we booked months in advance, July 11th, 2009. The main event was to crown a new champion and whatever. But we had guys like Eugene and Gangrel and we had Matt Birch from the Operation Repo show, as the commissioner, and we had a few, we had the Cutler brothers, and we had a lot of cool Jody Christopherson actually debuted that night, never wrestled, didn't want to use the Christopherson name. So we wanted to give him something, let him be his own character, because he didn't want to use it. So we called him Jody Ray, and Chimera, which is Ricardo Rodriguez, and of course Kid Omega, and all those people, and Caden, and it was just super cool. We had a lot of Christina Von Eerie versus I forgot her, Ellen DeGeneres or something like that, which is Nick Jackson's wife now, I think. Super cool. And that started out. Vendetta was just same thing as CWA. Man, we were Central Coast based, but man, we started getting booked at all over California and We were doing a lot of fair circuit shows, and we had a lot of big names. And anyway, that 2009, I said, unfortunately, because that was the same night Brock Lesnar went for the UFC title, first time heavyweight championship, and won. So our crowd just wasn't where it was wanted to be, what I'm used to in Santa Maria. So it took me a little while. I thought about maybe not. That first show was Vendetta, but then over that time I decided not to run Vendetta, because I'm like, man, that killed me, money wise. I'm not used to being that small of a crowd. I mean, it was 100 and some people, which might not be small in indies, but it was small for me, So I waited, and then at that time, I used to work at a company in the East Coast right before Vendetta. It was called Pro Wrestling Unplugged. It was ran by Todd Gordon from ECW, and I mean, legend and guys like the Backseat Boys and Devin Moore and I mean Teddy Fine and all these guys, Gary Wolf, and I mean the ICP were huge part of Pro Wrestling Unplugged, and so. They wanted, and Corporal Robinsons and all these guys, they wanted, so I was working there with Gangrel as the Bloodline, as well as Mike Rain. We got to work at the ECW arena and stuff, and I loved the name Pro Wrestling Unplugged, and so I was going to do Pro Wrestling Unplugged West Coast and forget about the Vendetta name, and then they folded. So then I came back and so I actually had to battle the vampires that would never happen. It was going to be Kevin Thorne versus Gangrel, and Ariel was going to come out with, I think she was not under contract then. They were come out together. It was going to be a cool battle of vampires, just because I was a mark for vampires, And for us, I have a flyer for it. Everything never happened anyway. So we ended up going back to Vendetta. That started January 2010, and we started working with Knox Pro. So Rikishi and all these guys were involved, and we were using a lot of their students and our students, and we mix it up with guys like Brian Cage and Rick Luxury, Brandon Bonham, and we worked with a lot of Jim Neihart. I think that show we had Jim Neihart on the show with Bobby Hart against me and Caden, either that show or the next show. But yeah, we were running at the Radisson Hotel, man. We were drawing 200-300 people every show, and that was what all the fits. It wasn't like it was a great crowd, and you've been to our shows in Santa Maria. They're real wrestling fans. I think that, they'll go home and, they'll remember Billy Blade or Katie and Anthony, or, the fact that they got to watch us wrestle, or against the Hart Foundation. They called them the Hart Dine, or they didn't call it, forgot what they called them, but, but it was cool, and so they'll remember that. So over the years, Vendetta just built steam and started building up. And I think we ended up joining NWA, and we ended up being one of the top companies in NWA. I want to say top 2-3 companies for sure that I guess represented NWA, and next thing you know, we also took over the Cauliflower Alley. We started joining Cauliflower Alley Club. If you guys don't check it out, huge wrestling, a wrestling non-fundraising. I mean, they, do a lot of fundraisers, and it's a can't even think of the words right now, but Cauliflower Alley Club, nonprofit organization. And they run a reunion every year in Vegas, and you never know who'll be, part of it. And then I have a lot of soft spots for CAC, man. They've done a lot for a lot of friends of mine, and they gave me the reins to run shows there every year in Vegas. To this day, I'm still running shows there. We got a call from Mick Foley right when Paul Bearer died, that WWE wasn't going to let him honor him. So we got him on he came to our show, cut a promo for Paul Bearer, and then went right to his red-eye flight back to WWE, and it's just stuff like that. And there were so many memories of Vendetta, but there's so many cool stuff. A lot of people came through our doors that are huge names now, and but over the years, you start getting students, I started getting students, they started getting really good. And next thing you know, I had a falling out with one of my students. He ended up getting really bad drunk on our show, and it's kind of a public knowledge. And next thing you know, he almost hurt a fan because they threw the ladder out of the ring because he was drunk, and it came 4 inches from hitting a girl in the face. And so he quit, but we were going to have to get rid of him anyway, just because, try to fight me backstage. I mean, there's just so many stuff. 6 months later, he decided to start his own company in my area, which, that's not cool, especially a student of mine and whatever. And so that was a rival. You can only imagine. And same thing with APW up there and all that stuff. It was, we've seen it. We're cool now, with the reason I'm able to talk about this. But then, unfortunately, with the circumstances with Vendetta, next thing you know, why they had their own promotion, they end up finding out that I didn't have my stuff filed the way that you're supposed to file, because in this area for a business license, you don't have to have a business license in my area with the type of business I had, because I operate out of my house. So that's my business license, and you don't have to have it in the county I live in. So I researched, I already knew all that, but they went and filed for a city, and where I live is, you got Santa Maria and you got, we're right next to Santa Maria, and there's, so it doesn't matter. But the bottom line is the county where I live, you didn't have to have a license. They went and found this out and actually filed Vendetta as their name. This company I'm talking about with an ex-student of mine. Yeah. So they went and filed Vendetta. And the only reason I found out about it, because you have to run an ad in the newspaper for a month. One of my students seen it, and I'm like, wow, really? So we're at this point now. So you can imagine that started a feud, because they're trying to take claim for something they had no, they had no invest in. And so that went on for a while there. And next thing you know, me and the gentleman, and I don't mind mentioning his name because he's doing really well. And he's sober, by the way, like 4 or 5. Since that happened, he's never drank, done drugs, and his name's Sledge. And, he ended up, and I'm proud of the guy for being sober, and, he's pursuing, he's in an ROH right now. And you know what? He's doing his thing. He quit the company so what I mean by quit is he quit being in charge of the company. He's just a wrestler. So I held him. I reached out to Sledge and said, you know what? Let's just kill the beef, man. I hate the feeling, And so we met secretly, just me and him at a Starbucks, and literally hashed out for 5 hours at a Starbucks, and just, we laughed, we cried, we basically just worked things out. So we all had a meeting, all the wrestlers had a meeting together, and we agreed that we're going to basically join forces, but they're going to run their company, we're going to run ours, but we're going to feud and make it a feud. And it's going to be good, and it was good. And the only agreement with that is they have to give me my name back, because that's not cool. Right. So they all agreed. The dad that runs it, the son who the dad who's a lawyer did all this, by the way. And then so the whole agreement was I was getting my name back, and everybody in the meeting all was there. So it wasn't like it was just me and this guy. Right. Next thing you know, we did the feud for a year, and it was a great feud, man. Sledge interfered in one of my matches, and no one expected that because of the beef, and the heat that we had. And next thing you know, we did a really good feud for about a year, and this whole time I'm supposed to get my name back. And I kept hitting the son up and saying, hey, he's part of the shows as well. Hey, when am I getting my name? Oh, my dad's working on it. And I don't know the process, to be fair. I didn't know, how long it takes. And then he's like, oh, it's good. You don't worry. He should have sent it already. I said, no, I haven't got it yet. He's like, oh, okay. And then next thing you know, I run at those Radisson shows, and they end up calling me and saying, hey, they end up calling me and say, hey, we're going to be running at the Radisson, because I stopped running there for a few months because they wanted to charge me an outrageous price. And then I'm like, so you're going to start running at the venue I run at just because I haven't ran? And I think at that point I hadn't ran in a few months, I'm like, and they want me to be involved. I said, that's kind of shitty, man. I'm not going to do that. But since you guys mentioned that, I do want to let you know that the day you guys are wanting me to join, I've been searching for other buildings, and I found a building that's 1 mile from the Radisson on the same day you guys are going to run. And it just coincidentally, that started a feud. And then next thing you know, I said, okay, I'll move my date to that Friday before the show you're running at the Radisson, because I can't tell you can't run there, And next thing you know, that venue gets a cease and desist from them saying that they own the Vendetta name. Yeah. I'm like, really? Wow. So then I had to have a meeting. With the dad. And I'll tell you this because I don't mind telling people this, because I've told them that. He had a meeting with me one-on-one inside of Carl's Jr. in Santa Maria. And I remember we're talking, and he came in, and one of the first things he said, the whole meeting was for us to agree for me to let me use the name that's mine, basically, for that show, or I'd have to cancel or change all the advertising and this and that. So we agreed to something for that show to get the Vendetta name, to use that name without any repercussions for that show. And then he gave me a contract to sign. I had to sign by the end of that weekend. And so I was going to call him the Monday after the show. And the contract says if I talk about him and all your people on their show can't talk about him, a certain selected amount of people, bad about him. There's all kinds of stipulations. If you stick to these, you can have the Vendetta name back in 9 months. It was basically what says that, you know what I mean? It was a bad contract. But what pissed me off about the whole meeting was the fact that he was telling me that he had me by the balls and he's happy about it and screw, basically I'm like, really? I said, that's how you do things? And by the way, the meeting wasn't only supposed to be with me and him. It was supposed to be other his guys, and they didn't show up. It was just me and him, and he knows nothing about wrestling, by the way. So here I am talking to a guy about wrestling, has no clue about wrestling, and he wants me to sign a contract that has no clue about, this is a contract meant for me to fail, but he wants. So anyway, that's what happened, and it was feuding, and it kept going, and eventually I had to publicly let people know what happened with the name. And next thing you know, we're in the middle of a lawsuit right now. He's suing me, my mom, and my girlfriend for $600,000 because of a defamation of character when he's been defamating my character this whole time for the last 2 years or whatever it is. So it's just ridiculous. Yeah. So the bottom line is every time I put out a Midget Mania, we'll talk about that, I'm sure, but a MicroMania show presented by Vendetta Pro Wrestling, he would call the venue and let them know that he owns the Vendetta name to try to get us shut down. And he did that to every venue that I tried to run at. So eventually I got to the point where, you know what, I can't risk losing my fair shows, which, I have the King City fairs, which are a huge APW, back in the day and stuff, and I said, I can't risk any of these fairs or any of these shows like CAC or whatever. So I end up just moving it to Pro Wrestling Unplugged. I talked to Todd Gordon, talked to the Backseat Boys and guys like that. And I said, hey man, do you guys have that name anymore? He's like, nope, it's not, you could do whatever you want with it. So I trademarked it. I did everything I need to. I even trademarked Vendetta and all that name too. I have all that set up. The thing is, there's a lot of stuff I can't say on this, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I got all this right stuff I need to do for Pro Wrestling Unplugged. I think that was a cool name. I just started using that name, and then that's how things kind of worked out. And it's still going to this day. Of course, we got hit with a terrible pandemic, but we're ready to come back when California's ready to open up, and so I had to move on and work the MicroMania stuff, and what I mean? So.
And let's get into that, and let's get into MicroMania. How you got, how did you get that started? And you're still doing shows, right, at this time, or here and there, or something like that? Yeah,
actually, what's funny is like the crazy thing about MicroMania is I started out in 2006. July 2006. We called it Midget Mania, and I had a guy had a falling out with another midget wrestling company, and so he's like, hey, you want all these venue contacts? I'm like, sure. Wasn't sure I was going to do anything, but I knew all the Mexican minis and all that. And that's a lot of those guys weren't doing any of the micro midget wrestling companies. So I'm like, oh, I got all the minis, And then so I did the July anyway. So I started researching. I'm like, you know what? I'll give it a run. You never know. I mean, even if I do a few shows a year, see how it goes. I mean, I can't tour like those other guys, but I can do a few shows. California's big enough to do it all. So right. I ran July 2016, and the first two shows. I mean, first show was pretty much a sellout. The second show was a sellout. July, the first two shows. Unfortunately, the show was in by San Bernardino, and the next show was in Santa Rosa. I didn't realize how long that drive was, and we get the bar shows. You get out 2 a.m. It was the first weekend. I didn't know. And then the following month we did like 8 shows and 6 shows or 8 shows in 6 days or something like that. It was crazy. So, and we did one show in Riverside called the Riverside Municipal Auditorium. Lucha Boom and NXT both run there, and we outdrew them, which is 2,200 people. I'm like, wow, nice. This is crazy. The people love midget wrestling. It was crazy how it worked out. Well, then over the years, I ended up transferring it, starting to call it MicroMania, just to kind of be more politically correct for venues when they're trying to advertise. We still call it MicroMania Midget Wrestling, but we just kind of try to work out with that. Anyway, so that worked out. We were running all over California. We were running, at that time, probably 2006, probably 50 shows a year, 60, which is pretty decent. That's not even on top of the Vendetta Unplugged shows. We're running 20 of those a year, Right. So close to 100, let's say close to 100 shows our first year. That's pretty good,
Yeah.
If you average that out, that's like, 8 shows a month.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, pandemic hit, and then all of a sudden I got a call from a friend of mine. He's like, "Hey man, he's a midget wrestling company. I'm not gonna go on the road. I got a regular job. I just don't want to do it. Do you want my shows?" I'm like, "Sure." So we started Idaho, Colorado, Wyoming, and I'm like, "Oh, this is pretty cool." And then somebody got word about it and from Sturgis, and so the 80th anniversary of Sturgis, they called and says, "Hey, we want you at Sturgis." So we worked that out. We did like 3 shows. We had 3 shows scheduled. The guy called me. He's like, "Man, I don't know what it is, but your banner is outside our venue and everybody's talking about it. Now we want to book you 6 straight shows." We're like, "Hell yeah," So then we did Sturgis, come back, and of course it's still in pandemic time, which is over the summer, this past summer, and then the same guy says, "Hey, you want to call me up? You want to do my October shows?" This is like all over Florida, Georgia,
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, from October through December, we did 45 shows, and then all over the United States. Of course, southern states, we're safe. We know who's open, who's not open,
Right.
And now we just start in February, we start MicroMania. This is our 5th year, 2021. We start February, and so far we got Myrtle Bike Week, Daytona Bike Week, Sturgis all booked. We're booked in like 15 different states so far, but we have probably about 70 shows. Like, as you can tell, look at these are all like it's crazy. Look at all those shows, it's like we got like 70 shows so far already through only June, including Hawaii, and then we start back up in California, hopefully September. We got a couple casino shows on June, and then we start back in Santa Cruz and all. You guys have to go to that one, man. We sold out this last time.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. I definitely do want to go check one out. Once in a while, a friend of mine will send me a picture of a flyer or at the events like, "Hey, dude, check this out." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I know the promoter." And one of my friends, Samara, I think, wrestled for 1 or 2 shows for for you.
Yeah, Samara.
I saw a video of her first up there.
Yeah, we featured actually, funny story. I wrestled her because somebody couldn't make it last minute. So I actually, as a ring announcer, called her out, and we wrestled 1-on-1. And I just remember the build. It's not made for tall people like some buildings. This one was in Forestville, and I remember I gave her some move, and her feet went right up through the ceiling. I remember that.
Not the suplex. The suplex.
So what's one of the craziest fan interactions that you've seen or been a part of?
I had to write it down because there were so many. Okay, so first of all, I've run shows for almost 20 years now, and I've only maybe had one, maybe 2, maybe. I don't even remember the one, to be honest with you, of people running into the ring and being stupid, kind of like you've seen on Bash at the Beach back in the day and all that stuff. Right. Wow. But MicroMania, I probably get someone to run in the ring at least one show out of 5, and they don't know what they're going to do. Just like you've seen in WWE matches, they don't know what they're going to do. But I'll tell you there's a couple fan interactions. One was really one of the ones that really stands out is we were in Costa Mesa and our ring was butted up to the stage and the fans are just everywhere. This place is sold out every time, and Richie was wrestling. Richie Slade was wrestling Ashley Grace. And we did that a lot. We did the midget wrestling, but then we did the bigger guys versus the girls, and they hated the guys wrestling the girls. This guy got so drunk, he went and ran and jumped off the stage into the ring and hit Richie from behind and hit him right in the back of the leg. Luckily, Richie didn't get hurt. David Brown, our referee, he went Randy Couture and started beating him up, And our DJ booth is right against the stage. So he had to he rolled right in between the DJ booth where I was at. And I came around the corner and grabbed. Now, see, this is what Richie and them are telling me. I don't remember doing this, but I must have super strength at that time when you're mad or something like that. I grabbed him like Darth Vader and picked him up in the air and threw him out the front door, picked him up and walked him out the door and threw him out of the door, I got an embarrassing story about, you said, most embarrassing moments. And I don't know. Man, back to the MicroMania, man, this thing, I don't know what happened. We were in a city called Ramona. This is about a year or two ago, about 2 years ago. The way I run my show, I do introductions in the beginning on who's on the show. And so the very last guy was coming out and he's the baby face. So of course that's the pop of the crowd. And next thing you know, I'm standing, our ring is on a stage and everybody's behind, like in front of the stage and the back. All of a sudden I'm standing on a stage while my wrestler is coming in the ring. And next thing you know, I look next to me and there's a lady next to me standing there naked in front of everybody. And I was like, why is there a naked lady standing next to me, you know? And I was asking her, I said, excuse me, you know, talking to her, and I'm in the middle of the show and she's naked and she's gibberish. I don't know what was going on. I was trying to get her to go back to our little block room because it was right there. And all of a sudden she just was not listening. She was drugged up or something. And then all of a sudden, I didn't know what to do. All of a sudden I see the owner from coming down the aisle with a tablecloth and they wrap her up. And then I talked to the owner. She's like, she told me that whatever you were saying on the microphone made her want to take her clothes off and come on stage. I'm like,
damn,
what? It was the weirdest thing in the world. I'd never seen that before. Like, you know, it was just weird, you know? And so like, anyway, that's kind of like crazy. I mean, but they happen all the time. You know, we do a thing in our shows at the end of the night where the fans get to come in the ring and kind of hit our wrestlers with our own weapons, bacon pans, trash cans, whatever. Well, even the last tour, we had a guy, one of my midgets had to beat the guy up because, you know, those rules, you know, you get to take the trash in and swing and throw it. And hit him. That's all you got to do. This guy thought it'd be cool to go and throw it over him like a bear hug. And he grabbed and threw my midget down on the floor. My midget wrestlers they're not pushovers. He got up and double leg take them down and started beating them up. And then the security started beating them up when they got him outside. It's like, hey, you know, you knew better than that, you know. But then he got on a mic, or not a mic, you can hear him yelling. He's like, okay, Hank won. That was my midget wrestler's name, you know. It's like, you know, we get that a lot because we work in bars, you know, so you have to deal with drunk people all the time. So we're very understanding, and we do our best to not actually get to that point, which we hardly ever get to that point. But people still get stupid and want to jump in the ring or whatever, you know, and you just have to get them out of the ring. I've had to take people out a few times just because people just get stupid. And, you know, I don't know if it's because of midget wrestling compared to bigger guys. Maybe they don't want to get their ass kicked. They think midget wrestlers won't. Well, there's proof right there. Our guys will beat the shit out of you, you know.
Winding down here.
Sure.
So obviously, you know, besides the Vendetta stuff, besides what went down there, what else have you found disappointing about the business? All these years that you've been a part of it. What is one thing that's always you found disappointing?
I think with the disappointing factor when it comes to wrestling, I see all these, and I'm not knocking AEW and WWE or whatever, man, or NXT or whatever, man, they're so amazing, their talent, but it's so, there's no character development, it's almost like people, and it's disappointing because they're over there killing each other, taking all these bumps and these crazy moves to get a reaction that you could get if you just build your character up. And I like that MJK or whatever. I mean, I don't really know him well, but I know he has a character, and he builds off his character, and he's not out there killing himself, and he's getting the reaction that all these guys could get if they just build up their characters. And I don't think it's the wrestler's fault. They're just doing what they're given, you know, and I get it, man. I'd do whatever if I can get TV and all that, I'd do that as well. But I just feel like it's disappointing because people, they're not going to last as long as like me or these guys, like, you know, 20 years or whatever, you know. They could, I don't know. Maybe they have super bodies. I don't know, you know, but you know, they're wrestling that many bumps in one match is going to take a toll, you know, and I don't know when it will, you know, but it's definitely something else. I think also disappointing, you know, people forget where they come from in the wrestling, you know, they forget where they came from and how they got to the business or how they got to the top. You know, I have guys, you know, that are on TV now who trained with us in the beginning, won't even take claim that they started our school for 3-4 months and then went on to like another school that they paid thousands of dollars to be at, you know. And then when I went to go put out my school, for example, like I wanted to put advertisement for those people that were, you know, claiming Vendetta was their name. I was gonna put out a big list of all these people who've been through our school, and then I asked one of the guys, "Hey, man, can I put you down since you started with us and got your feet wet?" oh no, I'm not giving you permission to do that. I'm like, really? Wow. Okay. So, I mean, you didn't even know, you filmed me. Anyway, I get along with the guy. I just thought that was funny personally. I'm not mad at anybody at this point. I'm the only people I'm mad at are people like the Vendetta name and, and then people, I think people need to earn. The disappointing is people feel like they don't have to earn their keep in wrestling to be in wrestling. So some people think they can buy their way into shows or like you were saying, I was telling you, and just go to school, get trained, work your way up, work hard, and things will come to you. I think if you work hard enough and get yourself out there. I've never told no one not that I'm going to get them to WWE or I'm going to get them there. I'm going to get them there. I'm going to get you the right kind of training. And then if you get an opportunity where you can leave and spread your wings and fly. See, the thing is with Gangrel, he's always taught me, you always, you got to always expand and do all these different shows. And even if the show's a shitty show, even though I told you I regretted it, I just regret the bumps, but all these shows, you're going to get better by learning from bad and good shows. And that's how you get your name out there. Is you might not get, don't go out there and try to get paid. Oh, I need to get all this money to make it to the show. Or I needed to know. I mean, I never really did that. Like I didn't never really worried about pay because it's never going to be enough and it's never going to pay my gas. I don't care what level you're at. Now some of these people now maybe be that way. But people have to remember that all the people that you're stepping on the way up are the same people you're going to pass on the way down. And so why like treat them bad?
So what's, just final goodbye, what's in the future for Billy Blade? I know you're waiting for the pandemic to die down a little bit to do Unplugged, Pro Wrestling Unplugged shows. You're doing MicroMania. Mm-hmm. You're still training. We actually have a friend, mutual friend, Ray Genesis, that I believe trains with you. He came up here and he started training with us, and then because he was driving from Bakersfield to Hayward, we're like, no, dude, there's got to be somewhere closer to your spot, man.
Yeah, I was telling him that too, man. I'll tell you, man, Ray Genesis, he is a great student to have. He's the type of student you want at your school because he's so dedicated, and that's the way it should be. That's what, when I first started training at Jesse's, I was 4 hours away. And I would go and train on a Tuesday night, stay the night in a hotel, and then go train Wednesday night, then come home and then be home at 2 a.m. and then go to work at 5. So like that's dedication. And a lot of people nowadays are spoiled because there's so many schools. There wasn't so many schools back in the day. Yeah. So Ray Hennis is a great student. I mean, I got a lot of up and coming students and we're training people right now. Like I said, we closed down for a little while for the pandemic, and then I gave my students the option, and they said, you know what, we can't sit this long, So now we're back to training. He's starting to do shows. Ray Hennis he's getting there. We have a lot of really potentially really good students, and if they stick with it, I mean, we got guys like Sledge who, came from our schools, now Ring of Honor. We had Buddy Royal that ended up being signed with New Japan Pro Wrestling at one point. And, just guys are coming out of our school that, I think they're getting the grasp of like actual pro wrestling and the old school, I guess, style, because unfortunately I can't teach them the new school style. You learn that when you get in the matches, you don't really learn that training at schools. In my opinion, I think if you just stick to the basics, you can get that in your mind. Chavo Guerrero told me one thing when we were doing a seminar with Chavo, because he was our Vendetta Pro champion at one point. So we have Chavo a lot. He said that we're all professional. This is an advice to people watching. We're all professional fucker uppers is what he called us, because we're able to cover up our fuck ups professionally and real quick, and because and so the thing is like people, you have to revert back to basics when you fuck up, and everybody does in every single match. So if you don't have that basic knowledge or that foundation, you can't go back to it, and there's a lot of people that are missing that, unfortunately. But you know what, they'll get it hopefully, but hopefully it's not too late by the time they get in bad habits and just spot. Eventually you'll get out. I did the same thing when I was young, but I eventually had to, because I get out of it, but MicroMania, like you were saying, MicroMania, same thing. The future with Billy Blade, I was planning on 2020 being my last year, and then this all happened. So I do want to have maybe 2 or 3 more matches before I leave 2021. If it opens back up, I'd definitely like to have 2 or 3 more matches, maybe one at Cauliflower Alley, just because that's always been good to me. And of course, Santa Maria, I want to go out with a bang, whatever. And maybe maybe one more with the Ballard brothers. I remember Roland. I was the last APW internet champion when Roland passed away 4 days later. I just won it. And see, I never really got Roland's, Roland always put me over or whatever, but like I never, as a wrestler, he never really, but that last time when I won that title, he actually talked about how proud he was to me and stuff like that. It was weird how that happened. And next thing you know, he passed away, and I actually beat Drake Younger for that title, and I was real proud of that because I feel like, I've been in APW so long. I never really had a singles title. And that now with Pro Wrestling Unplugged and MicroMania is just MicroManiaTour.com. We're touring all over the United States now because of the pandemic. So we're in, like I said, Daytona Bike Week, Myrtle Beach Bike Week. We just got booked in Sturgis. I'm working on all kinds of stuff. We're in Hawaii. This would be our 4th trip in Hawaii this summer. We're all over California starting, I think, June into the July, September. Hopefully that's long enough away that we can plan it. We've had to push our shows we lost 50, 60 shows, Now, I know there's a lot of companies out there that talk about, or what, they want to, California based, they really only stick to California. Like, I feel like we're the busiest company right now in all of pro wrestling, even busier than guys like WWE, whatever. I mean, we're running 4 days a week, starting in February, January for probably through the whole year, and so that's a lot of time on the road. And I'm thankful that, that certain states are still open and allowing it. So I'm real happy with that. And I know that, Pro Wrestling Unplugged, we're ready for that to come back. California will be back soon, but promoting has always been real good to me and so I think I've learned a lot from guys like Jesse Hernandez and guys like, that I've come up with, even Rick Bassman is a really cool guy with me, man. He's real cool. Been to our shows, Ballard brothers and guys, having those guys backstage. Rick Luxury is a huge supporter of us, and we're huge. Rick Luxury is good friends of mine. Sparky Ballard, guys like that. Even Roland Alexander. I learned a lot from Roland and Johnny LaRocca and even Gabriel Maris and Jason Jedrick and Zach Reeb, MPT and Big Ugly, all those guys. Mike Rain, I mean, we there's so many good promoters out there, and I give homage to all those guys because I mean we all learn from each other. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I wanted a note here. I wanted to put over Vito. I didn't know Vito. I was his first match.
Yeah,
watching
Vito
your podcast is cool.
Yeah,
first match in Cali. The thing is in Cal, I would listen to your podcast, all these old school guys that I work with, man. We had a lot of fun times, and I don't know if I got labeled one of the best wrestlers. I never wanted to be, but I've wrestled a lot of people over the years, and I've had really, really good matches I think I never really got the credit I deserve sometimes, but I'm okay with that because I wasn't looking to get fans' opinions, as long as the wrestlers and me got along. And I think I built a good relationship with the right people that are still friends with me to this day, and what I meant about Vito is I wanted to put over the Shit Bandits, man. That's cool, the Shit Bandits, that story, man. I still have nightmares to that stories, man. I just would imagine being a maid, like, oh man, Jesus.
Yeah,
if you guys don't know the story, you gotta
watch Vito Tomaselli's interview and watch Sal Tomaselli's interview because he was also.
Oh, Sal talked about it. I got to see that too.
Yeah, but
I got to see all that. But yeah,
that literal shit scarred me for life as well. But thank you, Billy Blade. Like I said, I appreciate. Since we met, you've always been cool with me, and I am very proud of your success, and I wish you continued success. And thank you, everybody, for watching Indy Handshake. I've been Jesus Cruz with Billy Blade. We'll catch you next time.